of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister for Gender and Child Affairs, other Ministers of Government, Dr. Rosina Wilshire, guest speaker, heads of diplomatic missions and other diplomatic representatives, His Worship the Mayor of Port of Spain, heads and members of non-governmental organizations, specially invited guests, members of the media, our audience on television, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Across the world, women play many important roles, be it of a daughter, sister, wife, even daughter-in-law, mother, apart from also playing different roles in the workplace in many cases. And so to honor and celebrate women and womanhood, every year the International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th. This is a global occasion which is dedicated to honoring the achievements, resilience, and contributions of women in all aspects of society. It is also a powerful reminder of how far women have come over the decades when we refer to gender equality, while also highlighting the challenges that still exist. Additionally, International Women's Day belongs to all who care about women's equality and all who value women's inclusion. The focus is on inspiring others to understand and place value where it should be. Action is needed to stand with women demanding their fundamental rights, strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse, and accelerate women's full participation and leadership. Our program this morning will receive special remarks from the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and a feature address by Dr. Rosina Wilshire. We'll also be entertained by some of Trinidad and Tobago's outstanding performers. To deliver welcome and opening remarks, will you please welcome the Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs.
Good morning, everyone. Let me take this opportunity to wish all my sisters happy International Women's Day in advance. I want to recognize with me today my colleagues, the Honorable Stuart R. Young SC, Acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. I also want to recognize my sisters in service who serve alongside me, the Honorable Camille Robinson-Regis, Dr. the Honorable Nayan Gatsby-Dolly, Senator Renuka Sagrami-Singh-Suklal, Paula Gopi-Skoon, all dignitaries, all our specially invited guests. It's a pleasure to have you here today with us as we celebrate International Women's Day. I have a prepared speech, and I want to use my prepared text, but I also want to speak from my heart. In Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to join the international community to celebrate International Women's Day tomorrow. And the theme says, for all women and girls, rights, equality, and empowerment. And it also calls for us to accelerate action. I am proud to be part of a government that has accelerated action over the years for all women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago. I am proud to be part of a cabinet and a team that has placed at the forefront of our national development our women and the needs, desires, and aspiration of the women of Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm particularly proud to have alongside us in the cabinet men who have been part of the journey, part of the process of ensuring our women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago have the opportunity to thrive. When we talk about promoting gender equality and when we talk about advancing women's rights, I often say that yes, it is our call and our duty as women to lead that fight and that cause. But it's more important to have men as allies. And today, as we commence the celebration of International Women's Day in Trinidad and Tobago, I want to specifically salute my colleague in the Cabinet, Acting Prime Minister Stuart Young, for always being an ally. As Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, I've seen over the years where whenever called upon to support any policy position, to support any activity where the women and girls of Trinidad and Tobago would benefit, Honorable Stuart Young SC has always been brave enough and bold enough as a man to use his voice to promote and accelerate action for women and girls. So thank you. We have been doing meaningful work at Gender and Child Affairs Division in the Office of the Prime Minister. Sometime last year, we launched our Survivors Transformation and Empowerment Program, where we recognize that for our women who are predominantly the ones who are affected by gender-based violence, specifically domestic violence, for them to emerge better, we needed to provide a platform for them to get the requisite support that would help them to thrive within this nation. So Survivors Transformation and Empowerment Program provides an opportunity for funding, not just for our survivors, but also for those NGOs that work alongside persons who are moving towards helping us to end gender-based violence. So with the Survivors Transformation and Empowerment Program, we have where those persons who would have been affected by gender-based violence would be able to access funding either through a grant scholarship or funding to be able to promote a business opportunity up to the tune of $10,000. For those NGOs working alongside us in the fight to end gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago, there's the opportunity to receive grant funding up to $50,000. And all we ask is for you to work with a minimum of 10 survivors. And while STEP was initially meant to mostly impact our women, we recognize that amongst us, we have men who are also survivors and victims, so STEP benefits them as well. And I want to commend the team at the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, for being able to reach out and touch countless lives through our STEP program and being able to provide funding opportunities for those NGOs and those individuals who are benefiting from that initiative. Additionally, I want to highlight work that we have been doing to help us to improve policy formulation. In-house, and again, having men as ally, in-house, and through our IT specialist, a young man at the Office of the Prime Minister, we were able to develop a very innovative domestic violence central registry system, what we call Umbono. Umbono gives us the opportunity to get real-time data and real-time information on what is happening as it pertains to gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago. What that does, it gives us the opportunity to know exactly where to target, how to target, so that we create better policies and opportunities for not only those persons who are survivors, but also for those persons who are perpetrators so that we can impact their lives to create the requisite change. We have also worked on developing our first national action plan on ending gender-based violence and sexual violence in Trinidad and Tobago. And we would not have been able to accomplish this without the support of various international bodies. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the UN system, the European Union, and all those other international agencies that would have assisted Trinidad and Tobago in developing a strategic action plan to end gender-based violence and sexual violence in Trinidad and Tobago. That is going to impact positively the lives of all women, men, boys, and girls in our nation. And before the Cabinet, we have our first draft action plan on women, peace and security. And I want to specifically thank the Canadian government for their support in helping Trinidad and Tobago to develop this action plan. Once Cabinet has the opportunity to finally peruse and to approve it, this is going to be a trailblazer in helping us to have women lead in the response to what's ending not just gender-based violence, but gun violence and gang violence in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to reassure our women, I want to reassure our citizenry that we are listening, that we are paying close attention to the unique needs of our women and our girls in our communities throughout the nation, and that we are working collaboratively. We are working in partnership with various entities to ensure that we create the right response. We have been taking a whole of government approach towards addressing the issues that specifically impact our women and our girls. But I often say what we need is not just a whole of government approach, but an all of society approach. Ensuring our women have the opportunity to accelerate, to ensure that we can accelerate action. As I often say, we need all hands on deck. Creating a better Trinidad and Tobago for our women and our girls is not just the government's business, it's all our business. So today, as we celebrate the small wins and the big gains, I want to salute those women who have laid the foundation for all of us who have the opportunity to stand as leaders. And again, I want to encourage those of us who sit around the table as women, as female leaders, to create space for another sister. Our voices aren't just needed around the table. Our voices must be around the table if Trinidad and Tobago is to become the best version of itself, if we are to truly live up to our fullest potential. Welcome. Happy International Women's Day, and may God continue to bless us all. I thank you.
And thanks to you, Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Darren Sandy is a performance poet, creative educator, award-winning actor, a published author, and National Poetry Slam winner. He curates spoken word events and facilitates workshops and training for all levels of writers. Darren Sandy tutors literature at the University of the West Indies and is pursuing an MPhil in literature in English at the same university. He has over 15 years of performance experience and has carried local spoken word poetry worldwide while creating a model of career sustainability for spoken word artists. So in true Trini parlance, what could Darren come here today to say about women? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Mr. Darren Sandy.
Something about the day seemed off. I watched my pants. The seams off. The kitchen kettle quiet, the steam off. Then I heard a man scream, "Gosh, she missing." I search high, low, and within. My missus has switched with the wind. She gone. I hear another man say, "Mine gone too." Another man say he big daughter not in netball or for a form, all mines torn in two. Someone asks if we search Pennywise or the corner stores with the hairdos. Another man say if we check the church hall and the CEO's chair too. We even search the Senate, the pilot seat, and not a prayer could undo the greatest injustice known. Woman disappeared from the face of the world. Well, at that point, I was surprised the sun came up, because the sun's civic duty is to spotlight the way a woman is made up. Not just the stature, but the standard of sustained brains topped with emotions unchained, cropped with a top and edges perfect in place. Or an evening gown plumped and perfect on her unique shape. A man jump out and say, "Cut the tape," thinking this is some kind of prank. Another man say, "Turn up the toilet seat, and if it stays so for 5 minutes, she bound to come back." Nothing worked. We immediately started counting our losses. Who will place the right amount of soft in our coarseness? Who will lead us in the fields we often fall short in? Who will we now crown? Who will be in the middle of the two drinks in Marshall's song? Every season seemed different. Christmas time, I put up 2 shower curtains by the front door. And instead of punch a cream, my partner just bring punch in. When Diwali come, my neighbor called me across to witness him reading a book about the benefits of bus up shut. A man who was the head of marketing, try all kind of thing, but he cannot even speak the language that speaks to him. Primary schools were without direction, that unique leadership, that caretaker's flair. And when police was moving on a beat, they beat everybody, they just don't care. A day without women is worse than the most degenerative thought. We were caught without an air to diffuse us. How many women we know have detonated time bombs? They refuse us our unmeasured ticking by picking off our shards in sacred conversation. Remember, a rib is where they come from, so they are accustomed to holding up our wobbly structures. So now that they're all gone, we await the rupture of the earth itself. Lord, forgive us. For you know sometimes we make this place hell's hell for them with our fiery tongues and egotistical assumptions, with hands that devil, horn, ram, puncture, and burn hurt in them. Is this your ultimate aim, Lord? To punish? To leave us with non-matching clothes, ashy elbows, and rendered unfinished? We are all driven to the end of our wits. Blue fits, bruises to our round egos. A man in the back, lost way in a corner rocking, singing, there she goes. She gone. He knows we just lost all muse and motivation. The world came to a standstill. Urgency and inspiration turned their heels as well. It was then we recognized Beyonce wasn't mad in she head when she posed the question, who runs the world? The answer, the people in question missing from these standards. You can empty their physical presence, then be overwhelmed by the aura. How a day without women will really go? Well, you had to ask someone else, for I'm grateful I do live in that world.
Smarter. No truer words were spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, TNT's Darren Sandy. And without further ado, will you please welcome to deliver remarks this morning on the occasion of the observance of International Women's Day, the Acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Stuart Young, SC.
Good morning. To the Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, and I have no shame or hesitation in saying one of my favorite cabinet colleagues and someone who is very passionate about what she has been doing for Trinidad and Tobago on our behalf in the last 9.5, almost 10 years. To my other cabinet colleagues, the Honorable Camille Robinson-Regis, Dr. the Honorable Nian Gatsby-Dolly, Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Schoon, Senator the Honorable Renuka Segram Singh, and to the Diplomatic Corps, to permanent secretaries, to all you very important guests and women here this morning. But you will allow me my first indulgence this morning as I pay special tribute and I welcome someone who not only brought me into the world, literally, but has carried me and my family for the last, well, for me personally, the last 50 years, and someone I'd like to pay some special tribute to here this morning. My mother, who has braved a public appearance this morning. If we can give my mom, Priscilla Young, a round of applause. Allow me to start by saying how proud I am as a Trinidadian man, Trinbagonian man. And that pride this morning stems as I look around the room and see but a cross-section of the strong, independent, vibrant, intelligent backbones of our society, you, the women, that today we pay special tribute to. Because you see, Trinidad and Tobago is a country I feel proud of, that we have not only spoken about it, but we have seen in our very short history, post-independence, and in more recent times, the last 10 years, women take their rightful places of leadership of this great Twin Island state of ours. We have led by action, and we have shown that this is not just talk, and this is just not a PR exercise. We were the first to have, quite rightly, the head of our state being a powerful woman, then succeeded by our current head of state, another powerful woman. The President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House. For the last 10 years, I'm proud to say that the government's leader of the House is the Honorable Camille Robinson Regis. In the public service, you look around and it's being led by, I am certain, at the permanent secretary level and at the heads of divisions level and at all of the leadership levels, there are more of our women in place and in post than our men. So first of all this morning, I salute Trinidad and Tobago for leading by example throughout the world. When we read the statistics and we see other countries, wealthy developing countries, aiming to get to a minimum percentage of women in leadership, when those come to cabinet, those reports, etc., I always smile, because Trinidad and Tobago is already one of the leading countries in the world in that sector and in that measurement. So give yourselves a round of applause. Having said that, Minister Webster-Roy is correct. The government has focused in the last 10 years on doing what we can to bring more levels of equality, more levels of equity, more levels of parity, to ensure that women are provided a safer space to shine and to excel in positions. And leadership doesn't only mean at the top. Leadership is throughout the rest of our society and at different levels in the structure. And I will give a little bit of a personal testimony here this morning, that I grew up seeing and experiencing and being the product of firsthand what a strong woman in a household can help to produce. Because it was my mom who took a decision along with my father, and I smile when I see the many stories and the many narratives being put forward of me, and who I am, and where I've come from, and these types of things. Because you see, I have no intention of engaging those conversations, because to me, those are shallow conversations, and we as a society are beyond that. But what I can tell you is I am a living product firsthand of the benefit of a strong woman in a household, and someone who put the children first and her husband first. And I understand as well in today's society, that is a luxury not everyone has. But I have seen, and I am a product of the benefit of someone who goes through that personal sacrifice, and parents who make the personal sacrifices themselves for their children. And that is going to be the foundation of what I intend to tell the government in the not too distant future, when I'm given the responsibility to take charge and to have the responsibility for our beloved country in that next chapter. How is it that we now as a government can introduce things via policy, but I am more concerned about implementation, to provide as much as we can that level of support to the women throughout our society, to ensure that every young child, or as many young children as we can, because I'm realistic and pragmatic, can get the benefits of women who have support, women who have the ability to have people to speak to, etc. And that is going to be one of the cornerstones of the government that I hope to lead. And I want to put it on record here this morning to just give you a little bit of insight. You see, domestic violence, both with intimate partners and non-intimate partners, we are going to take on that scourge frontally. One of the things that I will be asking the opposition in Parliament at the appropriate time to do is for us to increase the penalties and the sentencing for those who commit those heinous acts on our women. Because I am a strong believer, and you know it happens at all levels of society. My head isn't buried in the sand. So I am a strong believer that we as a society must stand up and let the persons who are committing these acts against our women and children know we're not accepting it. So if I know that's how you behave, don't come and hold out your hand to me to shake my hand, because I frown upon what you do. We will implement via legislation stronger penalties and sentencing for those heinous crimes across the board. It is one of the first things that we will do. Also, providing more protection when women take the step of getting protection orders and not letting it just be a piece of paper. That is also something I intend for us to focus heavily on. But the society needs to move with us. And this morning, I'd like to introduce this seed into the minds of society, because the time has come. The time has come for us to take action now. And what are the things we can do as a society to make it known that this is unacceptable? But it doesn't stop there, because I don't hold my head in the sand thinking that just by implementing laws is going to offer protection. I understand that many times the perpetrators of these heinous acts is because mentally they don't have the wherewithal to handle the situations, and that is not an excuse for them. But we must find ways to assist, because that is the only way we will really begin to deal with this awful scourge that is not only creeping, but creeping a bit too fast for my liking in our society. I also intend to go to Cabinet to ask my colleagues to support, because I see it firsthand in some of the areas that I represent as a Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, and as someone who is committed to understanding what all levels of our society go through, and in particular those who are more vulnerable than others. And as I was just saying at the head table here, I see it. I see the young mothers in some of the areas that I represent going through the struggles of being able to provide for their children and the difficult circumstances. And I understand that a big part of support that we, the government, can give to them is providing those who are trained, whether it be psychiatrists, psychologists, persons who can listen, who can offer advice. I intend to go to the Cabinet to ask, because there are a lot of young people who have studied in those areas, for us to implement programs utilizing the Ministry of Social Development, Family Services. I know we have it in the Ministry of Education, out of the Office of the Prime Minister, to offer that professional level of support across Trinidad and Tobago in the areas and sectors of society that we all know exist, that don't have the personal opportunities and the personal ability to just have someone who is a professional to talk to. I understand the difference that can have, and I hope will make, to our women throughout society. So stand by. That is another commitment I give in the next chapter that is about to unfold, because we have to provide those levels of service. This is not going to be a government, as we have been for the last 9 years. We have not been a government that believes in populist moves and just throwing money here, there, and everywhere. It is going to be very focused, as we've done. We've built the right foundation, and now we're prepared. And I hope to go to my colleagues in a position of leadership and ask them, let's now take it to the next level and provide that needed support to our women throughout society. So these are some of the things you can stand by. And I give the commitment here today publicly that I intend to have our government implement. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a few gentlemen in the midst, for those who may not know. This is not going to be, rather, we are in a period where we as citizens have some serious decisions to make. So I'm not shying away from that here this morning. And I stand before you, you're only a cross-section of the leadership of this country, but an important cross-section. And this morning I'm asking for you to make this journey with us as we intend to take Trinidad and Tobago, having built an extremely strong foundation, to the next level of potential that we have. But it cannot be done unless our women continue to take those leadership roles at whatever level in society that it is. And you have our commitment and my personal commitment that we will do the best to allocate the resources to some of what I've touched on here this morning. We have decisions to make. We have decisions to make in the next few months. And I'm asking you to very carefully reflect on whose actions have spoken louder in the last few years as we make a decision as to who will lead us forward. When you look at the political landscape, allow me my second indulgence of a few seconds. Look at it and see how members of parliament are treated on both sides of the aisle, and in particular, female members of parliament. Look at it and make the measurements by the actions taken. Who is only giving lip service to something at the moment and at a point in time, as opposed to who is prepared to walk the talk and ensure that our women are respected, that our women are provided with levels of leadership that they deserve and levels of support that they deserve. And my last indulgence as I conclude this morning, I want to take the opportunity to just recognize a dear friend that we all lost, and I lost personally not too long ago, a couple months ago, who played an important role as a member of a colleague from the Parliament. And to let Lisa Morris Julian know that we will continue the work that she wanted for Trinidad and Tobago. Lisa played a very important role with me, and I'd like us to just recognize her this morning. There are too many to mention, because you all are now the leaders and not only providing the levels of support that society needs. I look forward to working with all in our society and ensuring that that we have a united society that can really, really, really recognize and achieve the potential that I, and I'm sure all of you in this room, believe Trinidad and Tobago has. Congratulations. It should be more than one day. Maybe we'll tackle that as well, but I am not taking on that fight. And congratulations, and well deserved on today's recognition by us, the government, of International Women's Day. It could not have been more fitting. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your support.
Ladies and gentlemen, our thanks to the Acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honourable Stuart R. Young, SC. Dr. Edward Cumberbatch is a long-standing member and soloist with the Lydians. Under the guidance of his mentor, the late Dr. Pat Bishop, TC, he was a music festival winner both locally and internationally. He has performed lead tenor roles in several operas with the Lydians and the Pico Platt Music Development Foundation. He has had solo performances locally and internationally, including tours in the United States, and is also a member of the musical collaboration featuring the tenors of QED-TT. And he considers his music and music in total to be a gift from God, and is thankful for the grace to be able to share it. To serenade all women of Trinidad and Tobago on the observance of International Women's Day 2025, and especially to those gathered here and those viewing, will you please welcome to perform for you Dr. Eddie Cumberbatch.
please permit me to wish in advance to all of you happy International Women's Day 2025, and also to say thank you in song. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. There is no life without its hunger. Each restless heart beats so imperfectly. But when you come and I am filled with wonder, sometimes I think I glimpse eternity. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
It's called Smooth Like Honey. It's just transformative. It's pure Trinbago talent. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Edward Cumberbatch. You see, there are not many parts of the world where at 9 o'clock in the morning you can have one of the country's leading tenors perform as though it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Vegas or an international stage. Talent abounds in the country, and we are fortunate for being able to share in the experience. Time now for our feature address this morning from Dr. Rosina Wilshire. Dr. Wilshire has an extensive career in international development, governance, and gender equality. She builds capacity in transformational leadership and mentors leaders. She's a member of the OAS high-level group to promote women's political participation and supported the South African transition team led by Nelson Mandela in mainstreaming gender across the policy spectrum and constitutional reform. She was a member of the team drafting the Earth Charter and a member of the planning committee for the 1991 World Women's Congress for a Healthy Planet in Miami. She also was part of the official delegation and the NGO delegation to the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Dr. Wilshire was the first CARICOM advocate for gender justice. She led the Caribbean multi-country study on gender, masculinity, and violence, and was appointed a distinguished fellow of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Research at the University of the West Indies in 2010. From November of 2001, Dr. Wilshire served as UNDP resident representative and UN resident coordinator in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. She coordinated UNDP's substantive position for the Fourth World Conference on Women, Development, and Peace in Beijing, and was a member of the official delegation. Dr. Wilshire was also manager of the Gender and Development Program at the International Development Research Center, Canada, and an adjunct professor at Carleton University. She has lectured at the University of the West Indies for 20 years in international politics, international development, and was a joint professor at the Institute for International Development and Cooperation, University of Ottawa, and the Norman Paterson School for International Affairs at Carleton. She holds a master's and a PhD in political science, international relations from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, USA, and a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the University of the West Indies, Mona. Dr. Wilshire, a former Bishop Anstey High School girl, applause, claim it, is committed to equality, justice, peace, and care of the earth. You may wonder why such a long introduction, but when we are fortunate to have such a figure who has played such a powerful and meaningful role in so many aspects of the world's progress towards the equality of women internationally and globally, we must recognize those achievements, if only to inspire others that they will be there also. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Trinidad and Tobago's very own Dr. Rosina Wilshire.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Good morning. The Honorable Stuart R. Young, Acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Ayanna Webster-Roy, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, Ministers of Government, heads of diplomatic missions and other diplomatic representatives, heads and members of non-governmental organizations, specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen all. I have to begin by saying that my daughter, Tawny Broadbent, would have loved to have been here, but she couldn't. 30 years ago, thousands of women gathered in Beijing to advocate for the finalization of the Beijing Platform for Action, and agreement by leaders from all countries in the world to the principles of gender equality and the empowerment of women. Born in Pointe-à-Pierre and raised in La Brea, Trinidad, I had the privilege of leading the United Nations substantive position in Beijing and overseeing the finalization of the negotiations in the prior months. I was tasked with visiting China months before the conference to ensure that the country, recently emerged from communism, was prepared to host a global conference of this magnitude, not just in Beijing, where the officials would meet, but in the countryside where the NGO conference would be held. Women from Trinidad, women from Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean were key activists and allies in the negotiation and advocacy. These names included Hazel Brown, Angela Cropper, Nay Passard, Clotilde Walcott, Faith Wilshire, and Grace Talma, founding members of the 1971 Housewives Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Angela King of Jamaica, who headed the UN Division for the Advancement of Women in New York, and Magda Pollard of Guyana, Lucille Mayer of Jamaica, and Damnita Barrow of Barbados were foundations of the movement. The Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era, DAWN network, spearheaded by Grenadian Peggy Antrobus and Devaki Jain of India, connected women across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean and Latin America, and joined hands with women from the North to promote the Beijing agenda. Partnerships were made with enlightened men who sought the dawn of a new era of equality, justice, and peace for all, and care of the earth. The goal was always to advocate for an end to poverty and inequality, an end to violence and destruction of the earth, and support of policy which lifted women and their voices, while also lifting men, children, and marginalized peoples in the achievement of the well-being of all. As the environmental focal point for DAWN from the 1980s, I was a member of the team planning for the World Women's Congress for a Healthy Planet, which took place in Miami in 1991. I was also invited in 1991 to join the group of religious leaders, including Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, Russian Orthodox leaders who met in Geneva to draft the Earth Charter. The call was that all major religions advocate for care of one another and care of the earth. Beijing carried forward the key message that women's empowerment and gender equality were central to ending poverty for women, men, and children. The advocates stressed that equal recognition of women and core values considered feminine, such as love, compassion, and kindness, were essential values for every human being. and key to ending violence and the achievement of peace in households and communities and the world. Women's empowerment and gender equality were also essential to the care and protection of the earth and survival of small island developing states. The lead up to Beijing, in the lead up to Beijing, in order to ensure the holistic policy framework, I invited Freni Ginwala of South Africa, who had led the Women's National Coalition during apartheid and who became the first woman Speaker of the House of South, and the Swedish Development Minister, Jan Carlsson, to speak on a panel at the World Summit for Social Development in Copenhagen in March 1995, addressing the links between women's empowerment and human development and the well-being of all. I also brought together the then women heads of state, who included Dame Nita Barrow of Barbados and Violeta Chamorro of Nicaragua, to address that conference. We organized the Beijing Express train, which provided an innovative moving seminar site as it traveled through Europe to Beijing. It was designed to bring diverse women together for moderated conversations in a safe space, Jews and Arabs, Serbs and Croats, as the train traveled towards Beijing, connecting with one another as fellow humans on the same journey, rather than defined by their separate race, ethnicity, or religion. The culmination of the work in the commitments to the Beijing platform was a major achievement. 30 years after Beijing, where are we? Much progress has been made. We can celebrate the fact that in most countries, girls now have the right to an education. We've had several female prime ministers. Women have made major advances in education, health, and we have higher levels of women in business and parliament. Many countries torn asunder by war, like Rwanda, Burundi, and Ireland, which I had the pleasure of working, now have significant levels of women in parliament, with 30% quotas far surpassed. Rwanda now leads the world with 61% women in parliament. They have also managed effectively the COVID and Ebola crises and are effectively withstanding major global shocks, including economic shocks. However, the world globally seems to be going backward, with inequality increasing and women's rights under attack. Love of money, greed, and power are fueling a rise in inequality and authoritarian leadership, with heightening ethnic, racial, and gender divisions and increasing violence, the dominant order. IT and social media brought major opportunities, but also major dangers. Addiction to social media, greater alienation, and openness to mind control are dangerous trends. The pushback by groups that previously benefited from privilege and dominance has also heightened. While in the Caribbean we can celebrate that girls enjoy the right to education, in countries like Afghanistan, girls no longer have that privilege. There is the increasing cry in our region of what about the men, with women's progress in some areas posited as an assault on the status of men, and sometimes advanced as reasons for violence against women. Women's advancement in formal education and government is often pitted as competition rather than heralded as progress. The gender agenda has always been about men and women. The foundational call to challenge the gender paradigm of a hierarchy of power, money, and control over love, compassion, caring, and peace are becoming lost. There are only losers in the game of money, power, and control. Failing to change the gender paradigm, where men's value is perceived to derive from their capacity to be physically strong, dominant, unable to express healthy emotion, financial earning power, in a world in which poverty and inequality are growing, is a perfect storm. The outcome in a world where violence, including high levels of suicide, particularly among men, violence in the homes, schools, and communities escalates. When these factors are added to the failure of an educational system to promote environments of caring, love, compassion, and cooperation, and the breakdown of community and religious institutions, the negative impacts are amplified. The call to action is urgent. There is no question that women are graduating in greater numbers from high school and formal university. There's also no question that boys are more attracted to IT fields, which are earning them higher levels of employment and more pay than the girls with high school or university diplomas. While violence, division, and growing despair consume us, the graduation numbers game gets us nowhere. Reform of our educational institutions, building on the creativity and gifts of our society to strengthen creativity, cooperation, and innovation is essential. Early childcare education provides children at risk with an early start. It also permits single mothers to work and reduces the cycle of poverty. I had, as you heard, the privilege of attending an all-girls school, Bishop Anstey High School. Trinidad and Tobago and the region implemented mixed schools when the research clearly demonstrated that boys in particular underperformed in mixed schools because of their different learning needs and distractions when girls were present during teenage years. This policy shift indicated the absence at the time of an informed gender analysis and gender policy in the sector. We continue to lament the lower performance levels, particularly of our boys, the tendency of underperformers to become engaged in crime, and conclude that this is a reason to pay less attention to gender, rather than recognizing that well-crafted gender analysis and policies are central to addressing the violence. An integrated gender policy ensures that we pay attention to the different policy impacts on boys and girls, men and women, depending on their different needs, roles, and responsibilities. The renewed engagement of our religious institutions with our youth, particularly at the community level, with a call to unity, love, compassion, and caring, is also urgent. Our small size presents an opportunity and danger. We can continue on the present trajectory of violence exploding from the households into schools, community, and society, or we can pull back from the brink with a renewed commitment to equality, justice, and peace for all. I wish to congratulate Trinidad and Tobago for the progress made on gender equality, the Sexual and Gender-Based Violence National Strategic Action Plan and its implementation, as well as the Women, Peace and Security National Action Plan, which will soon be launched. I also wish to congratulate the Parliament for the steps taken to centralize equality. I wish to congratulate Minister Anna Webster-Roy for her commendable leadership and the Bureau for Gender and Child Affairs. Our societies are at a turning point, and each one of us has a critical role to play in reversing the present negative trends. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our featured speaker this morning, Dr. Rosina Wilshire. Thank you. Dr. Wilshire, do you mind if I simply say they don't make them like that anymore? But certainly you can mentor, guide, and encourage a lot of young women coming up in today's society. Thank you for your contribution this morning and over time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're nearing the end of our proceedings. For those who are here in the room with us, you do have the opportunity to mingle and interact with all who are present. For those of us on broadcast media and those who are joining us in the comfort and leisure of your homes as your feet are being consumed with Epsom salts and water after a jolly good week or two of fun-loving activity, here's some work for your fingers and your mobile phones. The theme for International Women's Day 2025 is Accelerate Action. So you are free for all of the pictures that you will post this weekend to add to your handles hashtag Accelerate Action. And as we say in true Trinidadese, diplomats, excuse me, big up yourself. As we come to the end of the program, may I take this opportunity to thank all who have been working behind the scenes to ensure that just in the aftermath of our Carnival celebrations, we will be poised and ready to observe International Women's Day 2025. And to the team at TDT Limited and the team here at the Diplomatic Center, as always, it's been a great pleasure working with everyone to ensure a smooth program. Thank you for joining us. We bid you farewell on TDT Limited at this time. Good morning.
This is TTT. Live for local.